lib.pyplot as Now, I may or may not use this. I just, when I get into visualizations, I may want to change some different things. So we're going to at least have them here in case we do want to use them. Let's go ahead and run this. So now let's get our data set that we're going to be using. So let's say data frame is equal to pd.read_csv. Just something that we could use, and you guys can understand that they're just numerical values. But let's also set that index really quick. So we'll say data frame dot set underscore index, and then we'll say date, and then we'll say that's equal to the data frame. Date column right here as our index. So we have January 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and then we have our ratings right here. And again, these are all just integers, and they're pretty easy or really easy to demonstrate how you can visualize these. So that's why we're using it today. So the way that we visualize something in pandas is we use something called plot. So let's just take our data frame, we'll do data frame dot plot, and we'll do our parentheses. Now let's go in here really quickly. Let's hit Shift Tab, and this is going to come up, and this is pretty important because this kind of is going to tell us what we can do within this plot. And unfortunately, there isn't like a quick overview. We just have this doc string, but we have our parameters right here. These are what we can pass in to kind of customize our visualization. So the data is going to be our data frame. Then we have our X and Y labels. We can specify the kind, and this one's important because we can specify what kind of visualization do we want. We can do a line plot, horizontal, vertical bar plot, histogram box plot, and then a few others, including area, pie, density, all these other things. We can also specify if we want it to be a subplot, and a lot of these things are specified. We won't be going to all of them, but I will show you some of the ones that I probably use the most, that I think are the most useful to know right away. So let's get out of here, and when we run this, we get this right here. And that was super, super easy. We created a line plot by literally doing just about nothing. But by default, it's gonna give us a line plot. So if we come up here, we say kind, and we get that out of the way, is equal to line, and we run this. So by default, without us actually having to input anything, it's giving us that line plot as a default. So we can specify it's a line plot. As you can see, we already have all of our data right here. We didn't have to specify anything. It kind of automatically took it in. Oops. And now we can run that. And then we can see each of those columns being broken out by themselves. Instead of them all being in one visualization, it's now 3 separate visualizations. Now let's go right over here. We can get rid of the subplots. I want to show you just some of the different arguments that you can use to make this look nice, because I don't want to do this on every single visualization. I just want to show you what you can do. So we have this one right here. We can add a title. Notice there's no title or anything really telling us what that is. So we can say comma, title, and we'll say ice cream ratings. If we run this, we now have this nice title right here. And we can also customize the labels and the titles for the X and Y axis. It automatically took this date, which is right here. This is our date index. It automatically took that for us, but we can customize that if we'd like to. All we have to do is comma, and then we'll say X label is equal to, and so our X is this date one right here, and we can say daily rating. And then we can do the Y label, say Y label is equal to, and for this one we can let's go right down here, start taking a look at our next kind of visualization, which is going to be a bar plot. So we'll do df.plot, we'll do kind is equal to, and for this one, we're going to say bar. Now this is what your typical bar plot will look like, and a lot of the arguments that we just did on the line plot, you can also apply to this bar plot. Something that's unique to the bar plot is that you can also make it a stacked bar plot. All we have to do is go in here, say comma, and we'll say stacked is equal to true. But now it's going to make it a stacked bar chart instead of just, your regular bar chart. Let's go ahead and run this. And as you can see, this is now stacked on top of one another with each of these columns all representing the values that they have. Now we don't always have to do every single column. We can also specify the column that we want. But let's take the flavor rating, for example, scatter. And if we run this, we're going to get an error. What we need in order to run this properly is we need to specify the x and the y axis in order for this scatter plot to work. So let's go here and we'll say x is equal to, and we can take any of our columns that we have up here. So we'll say x is equal to texture rating, and then y is equal to, we'll do overall rating. Now when we run this, it should work properly. Let's go ahead and take a look. Now if we go in here and we do shift tab, we can also see some other things that we can specify. So let's go right down here. So we have our x and we have our y, and those are the ones that we just did. We can also pass through an s, which is going to tell us or change the size of the actual dots right here in our scatter plot. Then we can also do a c, which is the color of each point. Let's start with the s. Let's say s is equal to, let's just do 100. Let's see what that looks like. So we have a much larger number. Let's do 500 and see what that looks like. So we can make these much larger on our visualization depending on what you're looking for. We can also look at the color. Let's put comma c. So for color, we can say color is equal to, and let's do yellow. Let's see if this works. So now we've changed it to yellow. That looks absolutely terrible, but it does work. Let's move on to the histogram. Histogram is always a good one. It's very similar to something like a bar chart. But what's great about a histogram is you can specify the bins. So let's go ahead and say df.plot.hist. Then we'll do an open parentheses. And let's go ahead and hit shift tab in here. Take a look at this one as well. So some of our parameters are the actual columns or the data frames that we want to pull in. We can choose the bins, and they have a default of 10 in here. And so let's take a look at how this works. So we'll just run this as it is. So this is by default what this histogram is going to look like. Let's go ahead and specify our bins. We'll just say it was 10 by default. Let's just do 20, see what that looks like. There's smaller columns right off the bat. And remember, histograms are really good for showing distribution of variables. That's really what a histogram is for. But of course, since these are completely random numbers of the box, which is the 25th percentile of all the values within just this column, this is 50%, we have 75%, and then up here, we have our maximum value. So I can take a glance at this and see that we have a low minimum, a high maximum, and it definitely skews towards the lower range. Whereas if I look over here, we have a lower minimum and a higher maximum. And you can see that this medium point is at 0.6 versus 0.4 over here, so the skews a lot higher. Now let's go down here and take a look at an area plot. We'll do df.plot.area, and let's just run this. This is what we're going to get by default. Now, something I wanted to show you earlier, I just haven't gotten around to. I want to show you something called figure size, or fig size. So for this, let's just look to, and let's just do a parentheses and say 10, 5. It should be pretty large. This is going to make it a lot larger. Just something I wanted to throw in there. If I look at these area charts as pretty similar to like a line chart, if we went and compared those, it'd be pretty similar. But they're different visually, and you absolutely can use these for different types of visualizations, but I don't use this one a lot, if I'm being honest. That's why it's kind of towards the end of the video, but you definitely can do it. Let's go on to our very last one of the video. It's going to be the beautiful pie chart. Let's say df.plot.pie. We'll do open parentheses, and let's run it. We're going to get this error. That's because we need to specify what column we're working with here. So let's just say the y, and that's what we need. Let me open this up for us. Right here we have our y, and this is our label or our column that we're going to plot. That's really all we need. We can just say y is equal to flavor rating. Flavor rating. Let's run this. Now we get this visualization right here. Make this one a little bit bigger. Fig size is equal to 10, 6. Now it's a little bit bigger. It definitely depends. So this legend is going to auto-populate. You can make this as big as you want. And obviously it's going to look a little bit better if you do it larger. And these colors auto-populate. Now you can customize these colors, although I found these ones to be just, when you have a lot of them, it's harder to customize them as easily. But definitely look into it. These are things, these colors auto-populate. Now you can customize these colors, although I found these ones to be just, when you have a lot of them, it's harder to customize them as easily. But definitely look into it. These are things that, everything in here is almost something that you can customize in some way. Although it does get a little bit tricky, you definitely have to do some research and some Googling around just to kind of figure out how to do those things. Now,